I think we're live now. A little delay here in the video. Can you hear me okay, Andrew?
Yep.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, my video is a little laggy. I don't know what's going on here. Something is not good.
My internet's been having some issues these past couple of weeks, actually. A lot of drop-in, a lot of bandwidth minimizations, just whole 9 yards.
Oh. Looks like I'm getting caught up here. There might have been some sort of bottleneck somewhere. I'm running this background and all that. All right, so we're chatting amongst ourselves, but we actually have a number of folks paying attention. Is this coming across nice and smooth to you, Andrew? Are you seeing, is the video choppy at all, or is my audio good?
Nope, seems to be coming through just fine.
Okay. I'm having a hard time with it displaying on my end for some odd reason. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm basing it off of the chat off to the right of the YouTube video. Is that's streaming by pretty smooth. The icons, the emojis that they're constantly displaying are displaying pretty smooth. So at least on my end, it looks pretty good.
Okay, well, sounds good. All right, well, we'll not worry about that so much. So here, we'll just say hi to everybody, folks in Facebook, across Facebook, and looks like we've got some folks in on Discord who are going to pick up this link too. I think they're probably grabbing our link off of our YouTube page. But this is the Discord Kennedy Volunteers live stream. We have a special broadcast going on today. It is the Mr. Kennedy is making a historic announcement about something. It was leaked to the press last week, and it was only a single report from the campaign that, or not from the campaign, but somebody close to the campaign that indicated that this might be a party change. But that has not been confirmed by anyone on the campaign, actually. And so we're waiting to hear what the announcement is from Mr. Kennedy exactly. They've been talking about it all weekend. There's been a couple of videos about how this will be historic. It's a historic location for sure, Philadelphia. And with me today, I've got Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
How's it going, guys?
So we were just chatting here. Now, Andrew's an organizer over in Michigan, and I know Mr. Kennedy's putting a lot of effort into that state. His team has got a lot of work going on over there. You've been doing some of that good work, so we were talking a little bit about how you know how things are going on, and this might be a little bit delayed. This is the way these events tend to work, and so we'll kind of hang out here until the stream. But we do have the link. We're just waiting for it to go live. It was scheduled to go live a few minutes ago, but like these things normally do, they tend to run a little bit later. So folks got a chance to join, get connected, and that's kind of what we're doing here too. Give you guys a chance to join up, and once Mr. Kennedy starts speaking, of course, we'll shut up. So I know those viewing the live stream, maybe you can see the live chat that's going on with the video for people anticipating. Lots of great comments in there. Some critical, but a lot of great comments in there. This is a difficult time we're in right now, and Andrew and I were chatting offline a little while ago. One of the things that we would probably want to bring up if we wanted to just have a discussion about something other than what Mr. Kennedy might be announcing is the situation in Israel. And that has gotten pretty tense. We were just kind of doing some review, and while we wait for Mr. Kennedy to come up here, I want to go ahead and let's share. Let's share this tab. I've got a link up here from the BBC, and they've got some information here about what's taking place there. And so we'll just kind of scroll down. And so the summary here, Israel is planning to use enormous forces against the group that did the attacks. Let's see, more than 700 people have been killed in Israel since Saturday's surprise attack, including 260 people massacred by Hamas gunmen at a music festival. Since Israel began striking Gaza in response, nearly 700 have died. Were you going to say something, Andrew?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay. 9 U.S. citizens are now confirmed dead while more than 10 British citizens are feared dead. Dozens of people remain kidnapped, and that was another element of this. There were reports of groups going in and shooting people, and when they weren't shooting them, they were kidnapping them in some of these attacks. Now, these attacks are still ongoing. I saw some videos that where you can hear some explosions in the background across Israel. There's a lot of people that are hunkered down. Apparently, the entirety of the area is pretty much shut down now. There's the Israel, they've locked down the area of Palestine, from what I understand, and then the Palestinian folks actually work, and so all the businesses that need to run, so everything is being affected by this. And so I don't know, Andrew, did you have any comments?
Well, just this is the most recent information I have as far as the deaths and injuries that have occurred. Palestinian deaths have been reported at 232 with 1,790 injured. Israel's reporting 300 dead with 1,590 injured. Civilians living in the northeastern part of Gaza claim that the Israeli government has sent them mass broadcast messages indicating to evacuate. So it seems the Israeli government is issuing evacuation orders to the civilian populations. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked President Biden for emergency U.S. funding to strengthen the Iron Dome defense system, which failed to repel the attack that occurred early yesterday morning and has continued on into today.
Didn't we sell that to them? The Iron Dome system, isn't that ours?
I believe it's not strictly ours, but I do believe we played a heavy hand in providing the resources to construct it and to design it. So, and it's been kind of a joint operation, as is a lot of what Israel does is done jointly with America because of how strongly allied we are. It's saying, I was also reading that there have been foot soldiers that were captured and killed from the Lebanese border, from the Syrian border, as well as a number of the other neighboring countries. So earlier, there was a call out from Hamas that operates out of the Gaza Strip for aid to a number of different countries. Ones that I remember off the top of my head are Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. They may have Pakistan, I think they called out. There was a number of different large countries that they called out to for aid with regards to this effort that they're pushing against Israel. Let's see. Yeah, the IDF has reportedly notified 150,000 reservists in the area to activate them and start filling them into operations. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it for the most part. But yeah, the Iron Dome was fairly well overcome with the number of missiles that were launched yesterday. I believe it exceeded 3,000 within just a few hours, and so it overwhelmed the defenses in a number of different civilian structures as well as military structures within Israel were struck with missiles, and I believe there's also been infiltrations. Everything from paragliders flying in over the wall to people to militant groups overwhelming the entranceways and managing to infiltrate in. But there's active militia groups inside of Israel that are just massacring different areas. So as far as I know, that's about everything that's going on. I'm sure there's a whole lot more, but bandwidth limitations here.
Yeah, so this is, things on their face appear to be just horrific. I'm always cautious. I was cautious, in the beginning of the Ukraine conflict to report on things that, unless they've been confirmed, because, in this overly propagandized world that we live in, we never know what things are true. But if some of these are true, this was a horrific attack. And was, and not according to the norms of civilized society. And Mr. Kennedy received a lot of criticism for his statement about how Israel does seem to try to uphold the precepts of rule of law more than some of its neighbors. And
Well, it seems that Mark's having some connection to this shoes. He'll be coming right back in shortly, I expect. So for the time being, I guess I'll step in and chit chat a little bit with you guys. Kennedy was getting a lot. Oh, Mark's back. Welcome
Sorry.
back, Mark.
sorry, yeah, I'm having
Okay.
a little bit of a lag here. Let me be sure. That's it. Oh, let me.
But yeah, as Mark was saying, Kennedy was getting a lot of heat from certain media groups for his stance on Israel and Palestine. But it seems that it seems that there's a lot more details surrounding that everyone needs to be aware of, and that generally speaking, I take a stance of we can try to resolve this as peacefully as possible, but there are certain organizations that do not operate under peaceful terms. And so, that's something we have to think about moving forward. And I think that's something that Kennedy is going to I think he's going to navigate that really well if and when he decides to speak on the subject again, because it is definitely a hot topic now.
Yeah, and I'm concerned that it may overshadow. Kennedy. His campaign is so hopeful for us, and so the idea. And actually, I caught some comments about this, and I was very intrigued by it. That the idea that this may so horrify the world that we might come together and to start talking about peace again, and that really is Mr. Kennedy's main message: is that we need to quit spending on blowing, the money on blowing each other up. And if you take a look at the weapons that exist in that region, we have to take some responsibility for that. And so rather than being a country that we build and supply, we're the world supplier of military weaponry, we can go back to, helping to build nations with things like roads and bridges, like the Chinese have been doing for the last 40 years. And Mr. Kennedy's pointed that out often as well.
Yeah, and that's something that we have to think about too, is that it's China is an up and coming country in terms of its industrial revolution. It's fully industrialized now, and it's beginning to undergo the fourth industrial revolution, the way that we in America kind of already have, where these way more advanced technologies begin to get implemented across the entirety of the society, primarily in terms of automation. China is going to be a major economic competitor going forward, regardless of how the BRICS nation alliance comes along, and regardless of how this conflict in the world goes. They have access to too many resources and too strong a labor body for them to not be strong economic contenders. And that's going to be something that Kennedy, I think, is going to help push us forward through, because there's not enough politicians that are focused on the boots on the ground issues that we have in order to get all this straightened out.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple other comments on this particular issue that I thought about too. Was that after the year of spending our resources on this ill-advised war in Europe, in Ukraine, we find ourselves at a point where we've expended our resources, and we don't have the reserves that we need to actually help a country that's very strategic to us. And so I think from a strategy standpoint, this was a failing. Here we are in a weakened state, unable to help in a way that we could. And then you got to take a look at the other thing too, which is an interesting idea: is how did this such a large scale attack take place without any knowledge, right? Without any tip off of it. That was like you said, it was a wide scale attack that included all sorts of vehicles and drones and lighter planes and so on. And this had I know, having worked in cyber security and the information security world, is that the Israelis are some of the best at this type of intelligence. And so why this was not seen coming, and it points out maybe the failings of our security state. As good as we think it is, maybe it's not. It's not worth the money we're spending on it, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard from that angle, and I've also heard a couple other angles. But one of the angles that kind of piqued my interest was the notion that it's really strange that there was such a large intelligence failure from one of the premier intelligence groups in the region. And considering the number of players that are all making moves presently, there's definitely a high degree of coordination that was going on with this. And it does seem highly suspicious to me that it was such a blindside. There should have been some indication. And it's one of those areas where when you look at the numbers and you look at the economics and you look at the fact that we have an economy that is built on war, that's built on making money from war, that incentive always gets overlaid when you see stuff like this happen, because that's the same thing with Ukraine. America stepped in because the military industrial complex stands to make trillions off of that conflict alone. And now Israel. And yeah, it just seems oddly convenient that something so large a scale got overlooked. So just completely dropped the ball on it.
Yeah, it does. It's astounding. And it's sad. It's sad. And, of course, there's so much more that we don't know about what's going on over there.
Right.
But one last idea that's important and kind of
here we go.
Yeah, it looks like they're getting ready to go live here. But one
Dennis Kucinich and Mrs. Elizabeth Kucinich.
Hello, America. Elizabeth and I are very excited to join you on this momentous occasion. I want to thank all of you who have traveled from across the United States for this moment. This journey that you've made is part of the journey that America is about to make. And are you ready for today? Are you ready for the next President of the United States, Bobby Kennedy? This country's journey began in 1776, right behind you on this beautiful mall. As we hear these bells tolling right now, the bells are tolling for the beginning of a new America, an America which lives up to the promise which was brought forth in 1776 of the equality of all people, that all men and women are created equal. It is up to us to help this promise evolve. And this is what this campaign is all about. It is about an evolutionary journey towards freedom, towards confirming the potency of our Constitution, towards reclaiming our basic rights, towards unity as a nation, towards bringing us all together, towards lifting up the cause of nationhood. This is a new America that we are creating at this very moment. And so, to each of you, to confirm the journey that you have made to this moment, let's gather together with a firm resolve that we are prepared to move America forward on a new path that in many ways is uncharted. But the chart that we have is the courage that is in our heart. It's the vision that we hold for an America that can be, and together we will make it happen. Thank you very much. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, New Jersey Assemblymember Emeritus Jamel Holley.
Good morning. Are you ready for Kennedy 24? At this time, please face towards the flags for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. America, are you ready for the next President of the United States of America?
I can't hear you. Are you ready for the next president of the United States of America? Ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Manolakis, Broadway actress, singer, songwriter, to sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine till all success be nobleness and every gain divine. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Thank you. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a Sishangu Lakota member, Lower Brule Sioux Tribal Council member, Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty delegate from Lower Brule, Band of Sioux Nations, Louis Grassrope.
Hello, relatives. Good to be here. I'm here to do the invocation. The first part and the first and foremost part we must always do as relatives is always recognize the relatives, the lands that we're on. It's always about the land recognition. So, first and foremost, we must humbly ask for forgiveness of our ancestors of these lands and the nations that reside in these lands. We're guests here in these lands of these native nations, and we must pay our respect to them also. And it's an honor to be here to speak before at this event. So I'm going to be talking in between Lakota and English. So, how mitakiapi apetukile mi chante eta woglake naha nape chiuzapolo. Wichakbi kasapa imachiapi. Na mila hanska ea Louis Grassro pemacha. Shichangu Lakota eta Lukui chasho oyate himacha na pejuwa kantioshpe. Said, hi, my relatives. I come today to speak from my heart and offer my hand. Wise Star is my Lakota name, and my name is Louis Grassrop from the Lower Brule Band of Sioux Nation of Indians. I'm a current Lower Brule Sioux Tribal Council member and a Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty Council delegate from the Lower Brule Band of Sioux Nation of Indians, and a grassroots leader and organizer on current issues within our Lakota. Remember our native ancestors and the United States of America. For us native descendants, it's been our acknowledgement of our kinship to our ancestral teachings, of our native origins to these lands and the protections that were promised through our treaties. This day is in recognition of those native ancestors who showed their warrior spirit to maintain our beliefs and our value systems left for us as a guidance to protect Mother Earth. The blueprints they left for us native descendants is to continue to walk in our natural ways of life and bring balance to a world that is divided in many ways. We're in a time of hardships, and it's up to the people of this world to come together and find better pathways for our future generations. As we pray silently and in our own way or openly is for peace for all creations to live as one amongst these lands and world. Our ancestors endured a traumatic history that needs to be heard from the voices of their descendants that we still feel today. They also showed us through their journeys a way of life that is from the origins within our native core values and beliefs to keep going for the greater vision of our native generations to come. Through that vision, we will find a way to mend the sacred hoop of all indigenous peoples in unity for all creation. We must practice our kinship practices to restore roles as allies with all indigenous peoples of this world. If we want descendants, then we must become ancestors for the next 7 generations of people of these lands and world. We must never forget the first breath of life given to us was from Mother Earth, and we must give back in protection of our one Mother Earth. With that, I shared that with you, relatives, in the best way, but I also must share for us when it comes to leadership, how we view it. When it comes to the right wing, the left wing, they're always fighting, but how is the bird? It belongs to one bird. And that's always the best part of how we view leadership through our indigenous people. It belongs to the one bird, so if the right wing and the left wing are fighting, then how are we to become, a strong, beautiful nation that we are? So right now, I'll kind of say that, and I'll want to say a prayer for all the relatives. Oh, Takanshla, Wichakbi Kasapa Achichiapolo. We come to you humble Unshika way, Takanshla, to pray for all creation and all the relatives, and especially all the ones that are in the suffering. All the ones that are going through the hardship and the less fortunate. We all must put them before us and really pray for them, especially those who are Kuja, and those that are battling the sicknesses within their minds and within their health. So we ask for Wichozani and Woksape, especially the respect and honor needed in the humility, but also the perseverance and fortitude to keep standing as one for this nation, for all nations to survive, come together in one way, Tekankshla. And I say that in a good way, Tekankshla, that you keep watch over all these relatives, especially their families and the ones that have traveled here, that they have safe travels home, especially to the people that have spoken here and the ones that are speaking. It's the voice of the people that should be the one that we're echoing. It belongs to them. So I say, wopla ho, mitaki ase. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, actress, entrepreneur, and soon to be the funniest First Lady in history, Cheryl Hines.
Hello, Philadelphia. How are you guys doing today? All right. Listen, we're here for a really good reason today. One day you're going to look back on this day and you're going to say, I was there on that day when something really special happened. I want to thank you all so much for being here. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to my husband, Robert Kennedy Jr. So thank you. Yeah, we all love Bobby. Well, you know, it's interesting because I've been traveling around with Bobby across the country, and something's been happening that I've never seen happen before. He draws crowds, and they are full of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, all in one place. Yeah. So what that's telling me is that Americans want to work together. They want someone to bring them together and make this country better. So that's what Bobby's ready to do. He is ready to fight for the working class American because he's been doing it all his life. I've been watching him do it. As a matter of fact, you know, he's an environmental attorney, and for decades he's been fighting against these big corporations, these corrupt corporations that were stealing from the working class American. I was in San Francisco when Bobby and his law firm stood up against Monsanto on behalf of one man, a man named Mr. Johnson, who was a groundskeeper at a school, and he would wear Roundup weed killer on a tank on his back and do his job, kill the weeds, spray the lawn, and he started developing lesions on his back. He reached out to Monsanto and told them what was happening. Could this possibly be caused by Roundup? And Monsanto never responded. So Mr. Johnson went back to work. He kept using the Roundup. He got sicker and sicker and developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And Bobby and his law firm sued Monsanto. They proved that Monsanto did indeed see these messages. They saw what Mr. Johnson had said and how he had reached out, and they didn't respond because they were making too much money. So Bobby has stood up for the little guy, for the average person who's just trying to make a living. He's been doing that all his life. They won the Monsanto suit, which of course, yeah. And then that, of course, opened up to other suits because Roundup is killing people. So one thing I know about Bobby is if he hears that can't be done or you can't do it, it only sparks a fire in him and it makes him fight harder. So I'm here to tell you that Bobby is ready to fight for you guys. Are you ready for him to fight for you? more time. I just want to hear it one more time. Are you really ready for Bobby Kennedy? Okay. All right, listen. I know you didn't come here to hear me talk. I thank you. One person. Oh, two people. Thank you. I am not going to wait. I'm not going to make you wait any longer. The moment you've been waiting for. We're all dying to hear from Bobby. So why don't you please make a lot of noise and welcome the next president of the United States of America, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Thank you, Cheryl Hines. Hey. I need my speech. You can't read anything. You can't read anything. What? Yeah. It's upside down. It's upside down. It's upside down. It's upside down. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Del. And thank you, Cheryl, for that beautiful introduction and for making me the happiest man alive, with the most unbelievable wife. I want to thank the other members of my family who are here, particularly Amaryllis, who's done such a great job co-managing the campaign, and my son Bobby and Jackie and Becky and Anthony Shriver and Carolina and Eunice and Jesse Shriver and the other members of my family are here. Cheryl is a huge, huge football fan. And the real reason we came to Philadelphia is to watch the Eagles play yesterday. I want to thank also Louis Grassrope for giving the invocation today. Louis, as he said, is a tribal elder of the Lower Brule Sioux, the Lakota people in South Dakota. My father, about a week before he died, my father spent a full day at the Lakota reservation at Pine Ridge. There was a crowd of 20,000 people waiting for him in Rapid City. And one of his local aides said to him, "We better get back to Rapid. They've been waiting for hours." And he added that the Indians don't vote. And my father looked at him very sharply and said, "You don't know who your candidate is." And that day he saw a family, an entire family of Sioux living in the burned out hulk of an automobile. And he wept. It's one of the only times in his lifetime that I heard of him crying. And that word of his tears swept across the reservation. And on election day, on June 5th, 1968, the last day of his life, he won the state of South Dakota with the help of the Sioux. And I go back to Pine Ridge as often as I can, and almost every time I go there, the elders share that story with me, and they tell me that it was the highest turnout in the history of the nation, and that my father got nearly 100% of the vote. There were only 3 votes that day that were tallied against him. And the elders always close that story by saying, "We're still looking for those guys." it's a hopeful sign now for our country that we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. It shows that we're ready as a nation it shows that our country is now ready to explore and to tell each other the untold histories of those dispossessed people who have previously languished on the margins. But today, as the corrupt powers have overtaken our government, the ranks of the dispossessed have swelled so that they not only include Indigenous Americans and Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, they include tens of millions of people who live paycheck to paycheck in financial desperation. The dispossessed also include the legions of the chronically ill, of the addicted, the depressed, the 80% of our country that cannot afford a middle-class lifestyle. A rising tide of discontent is now swamping our country. There's danger in this discontent, but there's also opportunity and promise. The danger is that the demagogues will hijack it toward fascism, or that our rulers will divert us to use it as a pretense for an attack on an existential enemy, another in the long pipelines of continuous wars. The biggest danger that we've all seen on a day-to-day basis is that they'll direct that discontent against each other. As Abraham Lincoln observed, quoting Jesus Christ, "A house divided cannot stand." A polarized nation is easy for corrupt powers to manipulate and to control and to strip the wealth, its freedoms, its equity, its dignity. Those are the dangers. So what is the promise? The promise is of reunion. We are told today that our nation is hopelessly divided. But I found something different as I travel this country. The most hateful voices, of course, are always the loudest. But there are a lot of quiet Americans who are looking at disgust at the vitriol, the name-calling, and the venom. They want it to end. They want us to get along. They want to end. And you know, those loud, hateful controversies obscure these vast areas of agreement. Most of us agree, for example, that we should take care of our veterans. Most of us agree that we should seek peace abroad instead of war. We all agree that teachers should receive decent salaries and respect. We all agree that housing should be affordable and that corporations should pay their fair share. We all agree that we want a clean environment, that we want wholesome communities for our children. And yet these universal yearnings stand alongside a broad agreement that our country has lost its way. Americans are weary, they're tired of the culture war, the phony slogans, the politicians who use the partisan blame game to divide us against each other and keep us all at each other's throats. And people suspect that the divisions are deliberately orchestrated, and that getting us to hate each other is all part of the scam. And they're fed up with being fooled. They're ready to take back power. There's no other explanation for the enthusiasm I see every day as more and more people flock to this campaign. Sometimes it gives me goosebumps. Their minds may tell them that the situation is hopeless, that the elites are too entrenched, that the corruption is too deep. But their hearts say otherwise. I know that because I meet scores of people every day, even those in the most difficult circumstances, who have not given up on America. I've walked picket lines in Los Angeles with hotel workers who live in their cars because they can't afford rent. I visited mobile health clinics in the back routes and roads of Georgia where families get their medical care in the back of a bus. I've planted gardens in the food deserts in Watts and Cleveland. I've sat amongst migrant children at the border. I've met social workers and doctors in Yuma who treat these immigrants with kindness and heartbreaking generosity as if they were members of their own families. I've walked the fields with farmers in Kansas who can't drink from their own wells because they're poisoned by pesticides. These are members of the dispossessed now. I've sat at kitchen tables in Pennsylvania with parents working every hour that God gives them to afford a home of their own, only to get outbid by a hedge fund with a cash offer at the last minute. I've worked with veterans who serve honorably in foreign wars and come home then to a country that is bankrupted by those wars. I've eaten with small business owners who had to board up their dreams as Amazon cashed in. I've talked from moms from Nevada to New Hampshire who lie awake at home juggling unpayable bills, choosing between gasoline and groceries. I met senior citizens who cut their pills in two to stretch out their prescriptions. And I pulled dead fish from rivers that are clogged with chemical runoff and waste. And I've read stories to children who are devastated by chronic disease. It can all look pretty dark. We seem to be cycling from despair to rage and back to despair again. The country is sitting on top now of a powder keg. Americans are angry at being left out, left behind, swindled, cheated, and belittled by a smug elite that has rigged the system in its favor. But I've also seen hope. I've traveled millions of American miles across my career. And to quote Tennyson, I am part of all whom I have met. For 40 years, Americans across the country have fortified me with their courage and their idealism. But this year, I have witnessed an upwelling of optimism that I've never seen before. And optimism isn't the same thing as denial. We have to acknowledge the truth. We do face a decaying infrastructure and record levels of suicide, depression, addiction, chronic disease. We do face an entrenched political corruption and an inequality of wealth not seen in a century. But the good news is that people like yourselves are finally fed up. Something is stirring in us that says it doesn't have to be this way. People stop me everywhere at airports, at hotels and malls, on the street, and they remind me that this country is ready for a history-making change. They are ready to reclaim their freedom, their independence. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to declare myself an independent candidate. An independent candidate for President of the United States. That's not all. I'm here to join you in making a new Declaration of Independence for our entire nation. We declare independence from the corporations that have hijacked our government. And we declare independence from Wall Street, from big tech, from big pharma, from big ag, from the military contractors and their lobbyists. And we declare independence from the mercenary media that is here to fortify all of the corporate orthodoxies from their advertisers and to urge us to hate our neighbors and to fear our friends. And we declare independence from the cynical elites who betray our hope and who amplify our divisions. And finally, we declare independence from the two political parties and the corrupt interests that dominate them and the entire rigged system of rancor, of rage, of corruption, of lies that has turned government officials into indentured servants for their corporate bosses. We declare independence from these corrupting powers because they are incompatible with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that the people who sat in that hallway ratified for us in 1776, 1787. Now we can guard life. How can we guard life when the for-profit corporations have captured the public agencies that are supposed to protect us? How can we enjoy liberty when a surveillance state seeks to hide the truth and to quash dissent? And how can we pursue happiness when debt and low wages imprison so many of our nation's families? And so I've come here today to declare our independence from the tyranny of corruption, which robs us of affordable lives, our belief in the future, and our respect for each other. But to do that, I must first declare my own independence. Independence from the Democratic Party, and from all other political parties. I haven't made this decision lightly. It's very painful for me to let go of the party of my uncles, my father, my grandfather, and both of my great-grandfathers, Honey Fitzgerald, and Patrick, who was the first Irish Catholic ghetto mayor of Boston, and Patrick Kennedy, who was a ward boss in Boston. Both of them launched our political dynasty over 100 years ago. But my sacrifice is nothing compared to the risk our founding fathers took when they signed the Declaration of Independence 247 years ago. They knew that if their revolution failed, every last one of them would be hanged. They chose to place everything on the line. When John Adams put his pen down after adding his signature to the Declaration, he turned to those present and he said to them, sink or swim, live or die, survive or perish. From this day on, I am with my country. I'm going to make that same pledge to you today, so that I can stand before you, as every leader should stand before you, free of partisan allegiance, free from the backroom deals, servant only to my conscience, to my Creator, and to you. Today, we turn a new page in American politics. There have been independent candidates in this country before, but this time is going to be different because this time, the independent is going to win. Three-quarters of Americans believe that President Biden is too old to govern effectively. President Trump faces multiple civil and criminal trials. Both of them have favorability ratings that are deep in negative territory. That's what two-party politics has given us. And that's why we need to pry loose from the hammerlock of the corrupt powers in Washington, D.C., and make this nation ours again. But there's a sacrifice that everyone, including myself, have to make if we're going to reunite America. We're going to have to surrender the kind of political addiction that is ultimately at the root of all of these divisions. And that's the addiction to taking sides. Our nation's renewal is going to begin when we start to treat each other with respect. Only then will we be able to step outside our tired, stuck debates. We can ask the questions then that nobody thought to ask. We can discover solutions that were right in front of our face. We will listen not just to the other side, but to those who are apart from any side. In a two-sided conflict, both parties have a kind of mutual dependency. Each side depends on the other to define themselves as good guys, in contrast to the other side, who of course are the bad guys. Well, if you're a team good, then you'll do anything, no matter how unscrupulous, to defeat team evil. And that's why we've seen both parties sacrificing their core values and the foundational canons of democracy in an all-out in an all-out struggle for power. In a war against evil, any means justifies the end. The result is that we ourselves become evil if we participate in that battle. The child who is obsessed with hating a parent becomes that parent. As I've surrendered my attachment to taking sides over the past 6 months, I've been able to listen with new ears to people with whom I disagree and to see solutions that would otherwise have been invisible. I'll give you an example. 6 months ago, I thought that an open border was a humanitarian policy, and that if you were for sealing the border, it meant that you were probably a xenophobe and maybe a racist. I was wrong. How did I learn I was wrong? It wasn't just that I listened. It wasn't just that I listened to the other side. It was when I actually visited the border and listened to people who weren't on either side. My views changed as I spoke to Border Patrol officers, to local officials, to local sheriffs, aid workers, and to the migrants themselves. I saw that no one party has a monopoly on wisdom, and none of the simplistic narratives actually contain the whole truth. My promise to you as president is that I'm going to do this on every issue. I'm going to listen to stakeholders. I'm going to listen to the stakeholders from every side and beyond any side. I'm going to uphold my moral convictions, of course, absolutely, but I'll hold my own opinions lightly. I'll look at the evidence and the arguments, and I'll choose not the easy path, not the established path, but the right path. In making an independent run for president, I take inspiration from the one other president who did not have a political party. And that president was George Washington. In his farewell address, Washington issued a prescient warning about the disastrous potential of party politics. Inevitably, he said, political parties will be taken over by a cunning, ambitious, unprincipled minority who will serve the interests of the party rather than the interests of the nation and usurp for themselves the reins of government. Washington's dire prediction has certainly come true. I intend to wrest the reins of both parties and return power to the American people. Now, you've all heard the pundits who say, who have been lamenting, how do we get young people to engage again in politics? I see so many young people who have now inflamed with my campaign. And the answer to that question is that that's the wrong question to ask. The problem I found is not the young people. The problem is what my generation, the old people, have done to politics. The millennials and Gen Z are repelled by the toxicity, the pettiness, and more than anything else, by the dishonesty. They want authenticity. Oh no. The problem is the politics. I'm committed to inaugurating a politics that is worthy of their engagement. I want to share with you a hopeful sign. I'm proud to say that my supporters include both pro-lifers and pro-choicers. They include climate activists and climate skeptics. They include vaccinated and unvaccinated. They include people who for years have been on both sides of the culture war. Why? Because more and more Americans are beginning to understand that for the good of our country, one cannot insist on getting one's way on every issue. They understand that people can disagree and still respect each other. You can be pro-choice and not think that pro-lifers are women-hating zealots. You can support the Second Amendment and not think that gun control advocates are totalitarians who hate freedom. This is what I mean from independence. It's more than being independent of two existing parties. It's also independence from tribal thinking. It's freedom from the reflex of having to take sides. Instead of asking people, which side are you on? I'm going to ask people, what do you care about? What do your children need? What is it like to be you? What do you love? Because our country is never going to heal if the only formula, is for one half of the population to vanquish the other half in a pitched battle. I'm happy to say that the old political alignments are dissolving. Right and left. The right and the left have become all mixed up anyhow. It used to be the Democratic Party opposed censorship. It was the Democratic Party that wanted to rein in the military and the CIA. It was the Democratic Party that fought corporate influence. Remember when Wall Street and big corporations all supported the Republicans? Well, who is the liberal now and who's the conservative? Who is the left? Who is the right? These labels make less and less sense. Yet out of habit, we still group ourselves around the empty husks of those old alignments and threadbare ideologies. But now that habit is breaking down. That's why half the electorate no longer identifies with any political party. And 63% of Americans want an independent to run for president. Of course, the outer structures of the parties still dominate the political landscapes, but they're hollowed out from within like a building full with termites. What kind of new political structures might emerge from those ruins? What is politics going to look like when it's no longer us versus them? American democracy should be more than just picking between two candidates anointed by shadowy institutions. Big oil funds the Republicans. Big tech funds the Democrats. Big pharma and the military contractors make sure to give to both. Instead of two parties, we have this kind of uniparty, a two-headed monster that's constantly bickering with itself as it leads us all over a cliff. And at the bottom of that cliff is the destruction of our country. Neither party has offered any kind of meaningful resistance to the endless wars that have sucked dry our wealth and slaughtered our youth. Neither has done anything to reverse the erosion of the American middle class. Both of them are powerless to rein in our exploding deficits. They have contributed equally to the corporate giveaways, to the corruption in Washington, and to the erection of a surveillance state. Yeah, there are good and honest people within both parties, even in their leadership, but the system itself is hopelessly corrupt. Now let me tell you what an independent presidency will look like. Because I'm independent of the military contractors, I'll be able to pursue a foreign policy that puts peace and diplomacy first. And because I'm independent of wealthy donors, I'll be able to close the loopholes and giveaways that bloat our budget. And because I'm independent of Wall Street, I'll be able to rescue debtors instead of the banks during the next financial crisis. And because I'm independent of big polluters, I'll be able to clean up our soil, our water, our air, and protect our Purple Mountain's majesty. And because I'm independent of corporations, I'll be able to unravel the corporate capture of our regulatory agencies. And because I'm independent of both political parties, I'll be able to enact bold policies that are outside of the partisan conversation. Let me be clear, though. Being independent of the two political parties does not mean making them my enemy. Dogmatic opposition is just as much a form of dependency as dogmatic loyalty. As president, I'm going to work with officials from both parties who want to join me in serving our nation rather than exploiting and searching for partisan political advantage. Every president enters office promising to unite the nation and to work with people from the other party across the aisle. None of them ever does it. They can't. They're already chosen a side. Well, I'm not going to have that problem. I'm going to build coalitions from both sides of the aisle. What that means is that members of Congress will start working together across party lines in ways that we've barely seen for a generation. My uncle, Senator Edward Kennedy, my Uncle Teddy, has his name on more pieces of legislation than any senator in the United States history. He did that, he accomplished that because of his capacity to reach across the aisle. When during weekends at Cape Cod, my uncle would bring home people who were his political rivals, who were Orrin Hatch, John Kasich, Harry Byrd, people who were terrible. For example, on my issue, the environment, I looked at those people and I saw Darth Vader. And I would say to Teddy, why are you making these friendships? And he said, because I have a lot of common ground with them. They know the difficulties of living like a politician. And he always said to me, as much as I love our country, they love our country the same. We all believe in our country. We need to be able to talk to each other. And that allowed him to become the most productive senator in United States history. I want to do the same thing with my presidency. And I'm going to tell you that because of that, it's going to be very hard for people to tell whether my administration is left or right. Is it right-wing to support small farms? Is it right or left to pull our nation back from the brink of a war with Russia? Is it right or left to implement a tamper-proof election system that also guarantees that everyone has a right to vote? As long as we're locked in these habitual debates, the two parties are often blind to common sense solutions. The formula has left them unable to govern. Practically every year we do what we did 2 weeks ago or a week ago, which is to come this far from defaulting on a government shutdown. And that's just the most obvious example of the paralysis of the two-party system. The system runs on inertia, year after year, decade after decade. It's like a runaway bus filled with teenagers fighting about who should take the wheel, and they ultimately learn that whoever the driver is, they're all obeying a GPS with a program that's written by lobbyists and corrupt corporate insiders. So I'm not going to just take the wheel. I'm going to reboot the GPS. And do you know who's going to set the new destination? You are. Yeah. Because as I've traveled this country, I've listened to you, and I know what your hopes are for the future, and I know your idealism. And together we're going to set the GPS toward the promised land, the promise that Jonathan Winthrop gave us, the great Puritan leader in 1630, when he stood on the deck of the sloop Arbella and said, and pointed to the verdant landscapes that no European had ever seen. And he said, we're going to build here a promised land, a city on a hill, a lamp to all the other nations in the world, an exemplary nation. And we came close to fulfilling that destiny in the years after World War II. When the king and queen look over the balustrades of their castle and they see all of their subjects fighting each other, they go back to the banquet room and they pop champagne corks, as they know as long as we're all feuding with each other, then nobody's coming over the castle walls. So this hatred we have for each other is orchestrated. And what my job is during this campaign and then during my presidency is to unify Americans. And then we're all going to go over the castle wall together. And we're going to take back our country. Moses, during the end of his life, he had brought the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt across the Red Sea, promising them they would get to a promised land. But 40 years later, he was 120 years old, and they had not found the promised land. And the Jewish people were angry at him. And they said to him, Why did you bring us out of Egypt? We were better off in Egypt. He went to God, Moses went to God and said they're going to stone me. And God took him up to the top of the mountain, and he let him look over the river Jordan. And he showed him the land of Canaan, the promised land. And he said, you can't lead them there. They need to get there on their own, but you've brought them up to the edge. But the people need to get there on their own. And he warned them, they can't waver from left or the right. They have to go forward. Martin Luther King, the night before he died, recalled that without mentioning the story. But he said to the people, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I know what it looks like. And I may not get there with you, but you're going to get there. But you have to get there yourselves. The people have to decide to take back the power in this country. And I, of course, am no Moses or no Martin Luther King. And I am part of a movement where we are determined as the American people to go back and reach that promised land again. And I do know what it looks like because I've had glimpses of it during my lifetime. I know it's an America with a prosperous middle class where if you work hard, if you play by the rules, you can finance a home, you can raise a family, you can take a summer vacation, you can put something aside for your retirement. I know that it's a place where we don't have to choose between economic prosperity and environmental protection. I know it's a place where our children will have the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us. I know it's a place where every American enjoys the right to vote and everybody has absolute faith that our electoral system has integrity and it's the best in the world. I know it's a place with incorruptible regulatory agencies. When I was a kid, the FDA, the CIA, or the FDA, the EPA, the NIH were the gold standard regulatory agencies in the world. The other nations in Europe and Latin America based their regulations on what our regulatory agencies said. They were absolutely incorruptible. They were gold standard science. I know that that promised land is a place which is a bastion for the rights that are enshrined in our Constitution. And I know that that promised land is a place where America is a moral authority around the world, that people look to us for leadership, that it's a place that promotes peace instead of war. And I know that America is possible when we declare independence from the deadlocked party establishment. That is the America that's possible when we declare independence from the war machine that devours $1 trillion a year. That's the America that is only possible when we stop fighting each other and go over the fortress wall. And that's the America that I'm going to serve when I become President of the United States. Now, the media pundits are going to tell you that we don't have any chance. They've given me a couple of first names. One of them is long shot candidate. And they say my impact is only going to draw votes from the other candidates. The Democrats are frightened that I'm going to spoil the election for President Biden. And the Republicans are frightened that I'm going to spoil it for President Trump. The truth is, they're both right. My intention is to spoil it for both of them. And only that inside the Beltway myopia deludes them into thinking that we have no chance of winning. I have seen the polls that they won't show you. I've sat at the kitchen tables that they don't bother to visit. I've shaken hands with tens of thousands of invigorated Americans over the past 6 months who are excited about a change. And I can tell you, our campaign has ignited a movement that has been smoldering for years, a movement to reclaim democracy, to resurrect the promise of our republic, the promised land. And that's the real reason that the party elites in Washington and the insiders are terrified of my candidacy. They recognize an authentic challenge to their power when they see one. There have been anti-establishment candidates before, but none of them who understands actually how to get the job done. Unlike President Trump, I've been fighting corporate corruption and suing government agencies for 40 years. I know how they work, and I know how to clean them up. And unlike any president since 1963, I will stand up to the military-industrial complex. I will cash in the peace dividend, and I'll bring our troops home with honor. I'll rebuild America's strength from the inside out. What really terrifies the elites, though, is not me. It's what I represent, a populist movement that defies left-right division. I am merely the bowsprit of a ship that is going to cut through the armadas of corruption, of secrecy, of lies. And except for the small minority of public officials who are actually corrupt, I'm going to tell you this secret. I am no enemy to the people of the two-party establishment, because guess what? They don't believe in it anymore either. They don't believe their own posturing. They don't believe their own rhetoric. That's why so many public figures, Democrats and Republicans, have told me quietly, I can't support you publicly, but I really hope you win. And they too want liberation from the system that has captured them. And isn't that ultimately what we all want? Liberation from a system that robs us of our wealth, our health, our hope, our patriotism, our ideals, our freedoms, and ultimately our sense of ourselves as a good and capable people. Is that kind of freedom possible? Is healing our divided nation possible? If we wait for someone else to liberate us and unite us, no, then it's not possible. It becomes possible when we decide to take action ourselves. People ask me, can you win? And I want to turn that question back on you. Will our movement win? Can this movement restore democracy, health, prosperity, and freedom? I'm not asking you to make a prediction. I'm asking you to make a choice. It's going to happen if you choose for it to happen. Democracy doesn't come about as a gift from oppressive elites and authorities when they finally relent. Democracy comes when people choose to exercise their power. And so I'm asking you today to join me in exercising the sovereign choice of a democratic people. Are we ready to win? Are we ready to win? And that's what a new Declaration of Independence sounds like. Remember this moment. We have a year and 1 month until the election. Let's go take back our country. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you, baby.
Dennis wants us to do a hands up.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Hey. I love you, man. Thank you.
Seriously, it was really well said.
Yeah.
So great, right? You did a great
Let's do a hands up. You too. Let's go, Fred.
So there we have it. Mr. Kennedy is announcing his decision to become an independent, leaving the Democratic Party. A couple of notes I'll go through real quick before we end the live stream. It was quite a connection with the local indigenous people.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Kucinich.
Looks like we got some.
All
closing
right,
remarks.
we're not done with this program yet. Look on the screens. If you're going to make a contribution, get that QR code, make it. We are also asking you to go to Kennedy24.com to sign up now if you haven't already done that. I want to thank the U.S. Park Police and the Philadelphia Police for helping to make this possible. Let's thank them. And to all of you, where you've come from all over this country, I need your help to send a message across America right now. I need your help. And when we can, in this moment, mingle with the spirit that put this movement together in 1776. So be with me. Let's become one and repeat after me. I declare. I declare. I declare my. I declare my. I declare my independence. I declare my independence. I declare my independence. I declare my independence. All over America, I declare my independence. Louder, I declare my independence. I declare my independence. I declare my independence. I declare my independence. Well done. Now let's go forward and take this country back. Thank you.
All right, so looks like we're wrapping that up. I was going to go through some of the high points before we end the stream. Looks like Mr. Kennedy noted that he's tired of culture war and the blame game and the deliberate divisions that the two parties are pitting Americans against each other, ready to take back power. On the campaign road, he noted that he has had a lot of heartfelt enthusiasm that he's noticed meeting people, and he promised to go after the smug elite. He had quite a few quotes during the speech. One of them, "I'm part of all who I've met," when he was referring to his time out there and learning about what Americans want. Independence from corporate influence and parties who use rancor, rage, corruption, and lies. That was a great quote, I thought. Corporate capture. Yeah, that was his main topic. And then another quote from Mr. Adams: "I am with my country," when they signed the Declaration of Independence. "I am with my country." Those are, I think, an important quote. He is now, and this is the one that I actually really I noticed. He said that he was servant only to his conscience his creator, and his country. And by declaring his independence from the corporate, the corruption. And that was actually one of the points that he did also make, that I've always felt that he's going to be one of the best presidents we've ever had, is because of his intimate knowledge of how the executive branch works and all the different organizations and who staffs them. And when he, as the chief executive, he will be better suited than any of our most recent presidents to go in and fix all those problems. I mean, just, fire and hire the right people so that everything is working. He called for independence from tribal thinking. Empty husks of the old alignment. That's what he called the two parties. That was a great quote. 63% of Americans want an independent, not somebody who's anointed by shadowy institutions. Democrat, dogmatic opposition. This is another great quote. Dogmatic opposition is the same as dogmatic loyalty. Having been inside the Democratic Party, I saw that dogmatic loyalty. And then to reboot the GPS, he mentioned that on the bus trip. And then this was the other thing. So it was a comment that I think I had along the way when he mentioned that he's running as an independent. Does that, this would be something that'll be, we'll need to find out about in the coming weeks. Does that preclude other parties from endorsing him? I know some of the other parties were looking at him. Maybe he talked about making this decision to go independent. It was a long and hard one. Maybe there were some other parties that, factored into that. And then finally, it was closed with Mr. Kucinich getting everyone to start the chant, "I declare my independence," which I suspect is going to be a campaign theme going forward. And so if you want to join the conversation, we're going to be talking about this tonight in our Discord server. It's discord.gg/Team Kennedy. You can join there, and we have a live pop-up event tonight. We'll be talking about all the events of the day and all the Kennedy content that's come out in the last day. And otherwise, have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we're going to end the live stream now.